Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I'm your host and super CEO, Lindsay Liu. Joining me today is Corie Salas. Corie has been in property management for 23 years, managing multi-site apartment complexes across the Southeast. She's currently a senior portfolio manager at Decron Properties, overseeing the management and maintenance operations of a portfolio comprised of 2,600 apartments in the Phoenix area. Needless to say, she's seen it all. In fact, this was story number 7 out of a list of stories, all of which were podcast worthy. But today, Corie is going to tell us about a pizza delivery gone very, very wrong. Welcome, Corie.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate you having me on your podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a decade or more now, but I used to manage a property when I was on site, boots on the ground, called Copper Ridge Apartment Homes in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is off of like Tramway Indian School area. Anybody that's familiar with Breaking Bad will know that that's close to some of the major sites where they filmed the show, which is kind of cool. However, during that time, we had a lot of New Orleans refugees come in after a big hurricane. And it was a tougher property. We would call it a C-class property, 314 units, garden style, low density, lot of different demographics living there. I would call it kind of tough. It was a tough, rough, kind of property. And I had some young people that decided they were super hungry and they needed to order some pizza. And so they did. And when the pizza delivery man came by, he went ahead and drove into the property. And these young men decided they wanted more than pizza. So they locked him into like a parking space, surrounded his car, decided that they would unfortunately be violent with this man and pistol whipped him, not only stole all the pizzas, but took all the money that he had at that time. And, back then we paid mostly with cash. So, they got a pretty good haul out of the whole thing, ran up to their apartment home. We're thinking, okay, what is going on? My poor little asset manager, she was out of Utah. She was there during this time. And typically when asset managers come on property and you community managers that are out there, your asset manager is coming to see the asset and see how it's doing and walk the property. So poor thing, she's sitting in my office. We have all this going on in the background. And I'm like, it's okay. We can go take a walk. And I'm walking the property with her. And all of a sudden you see, the SWAT team and they have all of their, guns and they're leaning against the wall. And she's a little bit panicked, hadn't seen anything like that before. Unfortunately, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We see a lot of that, so it shouldn't be normal, but it was a little bit on the normal side. So I'm like, it's okay. The SWAT's got it taken care of. No problem. So we're just walking through the property and the SWAT ended up, going into the apartment. They ended up arresting these young people that were violent with this poor little pizza man. Long story short, the pizza man, he was okay at the end of the day. They did get the money back. But not only did we have to deal with that aspect of how scary that is for somebody that's not used to it, and nobody should be used to it, right? You shouldn't have to see SWAT team members and things like that. Needless to say, my asset manager neighbor came out to our property again. That was enough for her. She was done. And the woman the mother of these children that lived in this apartment home, unfortunately was on a housing voucher. And because of that, not only did she lose her home, she lost her housing voucher. So, this is a huge, on the human side of it, these young men just made a split decision, thought they were being funny or whatever it was. I'm not sure what was going through their head. You never know. But she lost her home. She lost her housing voucher. So, I'm sure that family struggled after that, although it did take us several months to go through that eviction process. So, you have things like you said, this was number 7 out of probably a dozen stories I have at just this property alone. But the human side of it too is this is people's homes, and we are having to manage this as a business at the end of the day. And that human aspect is caring enough for the people that, whether they were violent or not, is trying to find them the best next step so they continue to have housing.
Wow, that is crazy. I think Part of what's surprising to me is just how casually you just said, and there was a SWAT team. So not your first encounter
Not
with
my
the
first
SWAT team
rodeo, no.
and not your last, or
Hopefully it's my last, right?
okay, hopefully your
Now that
last.
I'm different level in property management, I have other community managers, boots on the grounds. My portfolio now in Arizona is, more A property. So I don't see a lot of that, although crime has no address. So, we have seen things that happen at some of our properties here. Even you just never know. It has nothing to do with necessarily the location, just somebody that's watching somebody else. So it can be very scary out there, and it's living. It doesn't matter. It's life.
Wow. And how did the SWAT team get called on site?
The SWAT team got called because there was a resident downstairs actually that saw all this happening. And when they did, they called the police. And, back then you weren't videotaping people and saying, we got this on video. They just, you always have that one resident that has lived at the property for 30 years and they think they own it anyway. So they're very forthcoming with everything that's going on the property. So that person actually had called the police and gave them the information and where these young men had run to. And that's how the Albuquerque Police Department was able to help and, take care of what happened. But
Wow.
yes, it was very casual. I just told my asset manager, let's just keep walking. It's okay. They got it covered. Just come around here, because I'm thinking it doesn't involve us. We didn't do it. They got to go take care of their thing. Because it was a 314 units is a really low density.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big property. So as soon as we got around the corner, we'd be fine.
You're like, just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
All
It's
good.
fine. Fine.
Oh my gosh. Did you have to change any of your operating procedures for the future because of that? Or deliveries have only gotten more popular, right?
Right. Not necessarily. Like I said, crime has no address. It had nothing to do necessarily with a pizza delivery or an Amazon driver now, or DoorDash and all the things that we have. There wasn't a procedural change necessarily. Just working more with our crime-free support system that we had there in New Mexico at the time, and we'd have that here in Arizona too, and also. Just having our maintenance staff that lived on site and watching things. There wasn't something in particular that was changed, just working alongside the Albuquerque Police Department with anything like that.
Yeah, of course. I think, like you said, bad actors, will exist anywhere. It doesn't sound like these were criminal masterminds. If they did this in view of other residents, it's a split decision. And also, I think what's wild about it is it's like, what did you want, the pizzas or the money?
Right, exactly. They wanted both. I'm thinking there might have been a little marijuana involved, you know what I mean? A little split decision. We're a little hungry. Oh, there's some money. I think it just, you just have to have a couple of people together and one is a little bit more violent than the other one. And there you go. All of a sudden went from a pizza robbery to a pistol whip and, money stolen as well.
Just kept escalating.
Yes.
And so you obviously, these were your residents, right? So you knew of them, you knew of the family. And I think that's such a difficult thing if it's the kids that are just making dumb decisions, right? At the end of the day, and it affects the entire family.
Yeah.
Were there any, I guess, through that process, who had to initiate the next steps there? Was that just something that, because of the nature of the police department having to get involved, that it just triggers things?
Absolutely. Anytime there's a violent crime on property, as a community manager, you typically would give some kind of immediate eviction notice because, you can't have that. You want peaceful enjoyment for all of your residents. And unfortunately, any kind of violent crime has to be addressed immediately. So you would do the immediate eviction. Because she was on a housing assistance, we got the caseworker involved. And when you're dealing with the housing or HUD or any of those kind of things, because they get involved, sometimes those processes take longer. So that can be, what's the word for it? The other residents don't really understand. Like, this happened, they should be out now. And because the housing program is involved, it takes more time because they have to do their own investigation. They're paying the rent for these people, because you're going to fight as the resident to keep your home, right? It wasn't my fault. It was my kids. I know, they're going to be in trouble. I need my home. I can't be without a roof over my head. So then the caseworker not only is trying to advocate for them, but trying to find them a new place to live. So you have to deal with that part of it too. And then the court hearing and, pushing that move-in date, even though this violent crime happened. And that's why it took several months to get them out of the apartment, where if it was hopefully you or I, in a normal, hopefully we're not doing anything crazy, but if we were going to be evicted over a violent crime, immediate eviction, we'd be out and that would be it. Especially in Arizona, we're the wild, wild west. So once you're out, you're out. And the court system is really helpful with that.
That must be very interesting for the resident that called it out as well. I imagine they probably didn't think that it would end up being a months-long process where they had to live with the people that they ratted out.
Right, exactly.
On it. Were there any things that you all had to, or in these types of situations, do you have to think about kind of just more broadly how to manage the community?
Absolutely. Depending on what your policies are within whatever property management company, typically there's some kind of letter nowadays, some kind of email that goes out that kind of addresses vaguely what happened on the property, and to, watch out for yourself and your belongings and things like that. Because at the end of the day, the property is not necessarily liable ever. We didn't do it. We didn't bring the people on the property. We didn't cause them to, follow you home. We didn't cause them to, we didn't tell you to invite the weird guy to your house that night. Whatever it is, whatever situations that have come up throughout the years, like, I think residents tend to want to hold the property liable for anything and everything bad that happens. Their tire going flat, the carport, getting crushed by a tree, anything that happens, as in property management as well. And it's like, that's not our liability. As we live in our homes, like if I have a pest problem, my mortgage company isn't like, well, you don't have to pay your mortgage today because you have a pest problem, right? Like these things, the residents are still liable for. So, trying to communicate that in all aspects is a little bit hard. But we do want to serve our residents. Customer and care is the most important thing. And we do understand that, there is a human side to it, but there's also a business side to it as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm sure a lot of people were trying to find a loophole or something in the aftermath of something like that, right?
Yeah,
I don't want to live
That's
next to these
fair.
people.
I don't feel safe. I want out of my lease. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what an interesting set of bad decisions that led to, I'm sure, very long-term ramifications.
Yeah.
So that's, I think that's part of this business is you are in people's lives and in their homes, and the good and the bad decisions that they end up making. Absolutely. You see it all.
You see it all. And it just, sidebar, I had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I had a lot of refugees from New Orleans, and I used to have this wonderful woman that came in every day to see me. Her name was Miss Jackson. And so I would sing to her because that's what I do. So I'd be like, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh, I am for real. And she would just love it. Every day she would come in just so I would sing her that song. And that's the other side of it, right? Like you build these relationships with people, you build this rapport with people, and they truly become, a part of your inner circle on the property side, because, we watch kids grow up. We watch some of our elders get older, and we've lost a lot. I've had people take their lives, it just, so there's all those things that happen within 23 years of it. I've seen lots and lots, and I've seen a lot of people grow in the industry too, which is really cool. Another side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an industry of extremes, right? I think that is very much it. Also, I was not going to ask you to sing, and then you did, and it was amazing. So, wow, lucky Miss Jackson.
Yeah, welcome to
at the moment you were like, she asked me to sing.
Anybody that knows me knows that I'm popping out some song all the time.
You're ready. We're going to do a karaoke episode next time.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, Corie, thank you so much for sharing one of your many stories with us today. If people want to get in touch to hear more stories or learn more from you, how can they do that?
Yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, just under my name, Corie Salas. It's Decron Properties Group that I am with right now, and we're posting all the time, and I'm always looking for good people or mentees or mentors, and I'm here. So just look me up.
Perfect. Look up Corie on LinkedIn. So that's today's episode of If These Walls Could Talk. Super is the AI-powered communication and workflow tool for property managers. To learn more about Super, visit us at www.hiresuper.com. To share a story you have for a future episode, email us at hello@hiresuper.com.